And with that, I am actually going to turn it over to Karen Fox Elwell, our CEO. She's going to share a little bit with you about what Growing Home is for those of you who are newer to the organization and what our journey over the past year has looked like. So Karen, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much, Miranda. As Miranda mentioned, I'm Karen Fox Elwell, and I have the honor of serving as the president and CEO at Growing Home. So at Growing Home, we believe that every family should have the opportunity to thrive in equitable communities. We work every day side by side with our community to strengthen families, nurture children, and connect community, so that every family has the opportunity to have a place to call home, food on the table, and the opportunities to pursue our dreams. Wonderful. As Growing Home started as a rotational shelter for families experiencing homelessness, and over our 23-year history as an organization, we have transformed into a comprehensive anti-poverty organization that's really focusing on supporting strong and resilient families and thriving and equitable communities. So we strengthen families by providing participant-centered basic needs supports, predominantly in the areas of food, access, and housing supports, to help families overcome obstacles and be on a pathway to stability, resiliency, and healthy habits. We nurture children by providing parents with support, coaching, resources, and skills to help support the next generation on a path to a brighter future. And we connect community by bringing together our entire community from all walks of life to share in the challenges of solving complex challenges in our community, such as areas of food and housing justice. At Growing Home, we focus on sustainable outcomes for our families, where we use evidence-based programs. We focus on measuring, evaluating the impact of our programs, and demonstrating impact in the lives of children, families, and our community at large. And so, as many of you know, in 2019, due to a wide variety of reasons, we had to make a very challenging decision as an organization and made the decision to sunset our founding program as an organization, our rotational shelter program known as Canopy. Despite this transition, that family homelessness continues to be central to the mission of Growing Home. What we learned over our many years of working with families experiencing homelessness is that homelessness is a complex issue. And our families told us that there were many complex factors that led to them becoming homeless. Furthermore, our families told us about the trauma that they experienced in experiencing homelessness, and particularly the trauma that impacted their children and had long-term impacts on their health and well-being. Additionally, our families told us that once they had experienced homelessness and had an eviction or other reason for becoming homeless, that it was very hard to find their next step and to find another place to live. And even more so, that long-term housing stability was challenging. With all of this information in mind, we started on a journey as an organization to better understand what it would look like to approach the issue of family homelessness from a prevention lens. We looked both locally and nationally for best practices around family homelessness and housing stability. And with all of that information, in the beginning of 2020, we worked together to create our own housing stability program. And so today we are so excited to have the opportunity to share more about our housing stability program, the impact that we have been able to have in our initial 12 months of this program, our hopes and dreams for the future, and opportunities for you to be involved. And so I'd like to pass it to Joy Concepcion, our Strengthening Families Program Manager, to talk to you a bit more specifically about our housing stability program and the impacts that we've had. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. So as Karen said, I'm Joy Concepcion. I'm the Strengthening Families manager here at Growing Home. And I'd love to tell you a little bit more about housing stability here at Growing Home. I'm honored to share this information with you. First of all, to define what housing stability is, we are looking at addressing the barriers and those factors that Karen mentioned when supporting families so that they can have long-term housing stability over time. We believe that if we work together in partnership with families, we can help connect them to the resources that they need, both internal and external, to be able to bring their family forward into more long-term stability. And so it's important to talk a little bit about how people get into our program and where it's kind of guided towards. And so to start off, it's important to mention that families, many families are at risk of being homeless, and many more families than we might consider. You don't necessarily have to have an eviction notice on your door to be at risk of homelessness. And you don't necessarily have to be a couple months behind to be at risk of homelessness. Essentially, when we looked at the community, we see that many families have a significant housing burden. And what a housing burden means is that their rent or their mortgage, their housing payment, is greater than 1/3 of their gross income. And when you think about the more you have to pay into your housing, it means the less you have for any kind of other circumstances that might come up, and the less you have to be able to stabilize over time. A deep housing burden creates instability in and of itself and insecurity from that. We also find that a grand majority of families that come to Growing Home don't have any emergency savings. And that seems to be one of the very few unifying factors of all families we see here at Growing Home, is that emergency savings is indicative of the fact that life right now is sometimes more a burden than we have with what can we have coming in with our income. So when we're looking as a Strengthening Families program to focus on supporting those families that are struggling, we look to address some of the barriers that are immediate, that we can help support them with, that might be causing housing insecurity and we're doing this while in their own home before they become homeless. So essentially, since we started the pilot, families apply for our program usually internally after having participated in a Growing Home program. That application is fairly short. It has about 15 questions or so, but it helps us to understand the circumstances and the barriers that the family is experiencing. We really recognize that we can best support families that are needing just an additional set of eyes or hands or resources to be able to stabilize over time. We also recognize that there are families that are chronically dealing with barriers. And in those situations, we do our best to connect them with programs that can better suit their needs and help them in a more in-depth way. We also recognize that some families just need a little bit of rental assistance and they're fine for the next month. And those families we often refer in the direction of programs that just support with one-time or partial rental assistance. Where we really focus in is kind of that Goldilocks zone for families that just need an additional set of help. They do need another person in their corner helping them out, and we can be that for them. And so families come to us from our Parents as Teachers program, our collaborative coaching program, and our food pantry. And now that we're past the pilot, we also have families coming to us from specific strategic partners that we've identified that have an existing relationship with families and can kind of hand off that relationship to us. So partners such as TANF from Adams County, a handful of other nonprofits, and of course, affordable housing communities in our area will get in touch with us and send us referrals of families that need our assistance and support. To define what our assistance and support is, we are offering each family 3 months of case management and initially like stabilizing funds. And during those 3 months, they meet for 6 separate appointments to work with each family. And during those appointments, they discuss their barriers to stability, and then they work with staff on creating goals and seeking out resources that will address those barriers that they're experiencing. We also are able to help stabilize their situation by that initial rental assistance that we're providing right at the beginning of the program, and then infusing additional financial supports throughout the program corresponding to the goals that they're working on, and all of that just to enhance their overall stability. So that can be additional rental assistance during those 3 months of support, utility assistance, or sometimes gift cards for some of those necessary items like food and gas. So we finish up those 6 meetings, and as we're finishing those up, we work hard to connect families to ongoing supportive services and resources that they've identified would be appropriate for them. And so for some families, that means connecting to our collaborative coaching program or our food pantry or our PAT program, or our connecting community efforts. And for other families, it means connecting them to additional assistance outside of Growing Home. And that's very important for us, that we are working throughout those 6 meetings to establish a shared understanding of what their needs are and what their barriers are, and that we're able to support the long-term stability and countering to those barriers. A few key takeaways: we provide that financial assistance, that initial rental assistance, and ongoing assistance during those months. We offer participant-centered partnership and housing stability coaching throughout that. And that means we work on goals together, and we dream big. What does a family need to be able to thrive? And after those goals are set, for those resource connections to really connect each family to. So some of the core components to know about, we have an intake process, we do an assessment of their needs, and we have that one-on-one individualized support that's happening within those case management meetings, the financial assistance, goal setting, referrals, and resources. So if we're looking towards what our successes were in this last year of our pilot, one thing I'd like to highlight is that participants accomplished a significant change during those 3 months of working with us. For many families, that was saving 1 to 2 months of rent and having that in the bank so that in case of another downturn or pandemic, they would have some savings to rely on to keep them out of more serious financial troubles. We also worked with many families on reducing debt, which is a huge, huge piece of destabilization that happens for many families. We worked with families to increase their financial stability through improving their employment situation. For some families, that's getting more hours at work or getting back to work after being furloughed or stuck at home due to the pandemic. For other families, it means looking for newer jobs or a new field. There's also immigration and legal assistance that happens throughout this process for some families. And other families want to look into additional training and education. One of the things here on the slide that you'll see is I just wanted to highlight some of the long-term outcomes that we saw throughout the pilot. Every family received that pre-survey where we understood what their barriers were and where they were at things. And the percentage of participants who were able to maintain stable housing at the beginning was around 71%. By the 3 months of those, that exit from the 3 months of case management, we were seeing 100% of families able to stay in their homes and able to make their rent without struggling. And 6 months on, and this is the piece that I am the most excited to see, 6 months on, we are seeing that 95% of families that we help support with this 3-month program were still maintaining stable housing. The next piece of that is how many were able to pay their rent and mortgage on time. And keep in mind that this data all comes from a time of great difficulty and change in our community with the pandemic. Before the survey, 47% were able to pay their rent and mortgage on time. During those 3 months, we were able to move that with families up to 89%. And then that 89% over 6 months, 6 months later, 84% of families were still able to maintain paying their rent and mortgage on time. So those are just a few numbers about rent and mortgage, but what I would like you to see is the overall big picture of that. Going back to that question of what does housing stability mean to you? When families, that 84% of families are able to pay their rent on time, they're able to breathe. They're able to attend their child's parent-teacher conferences without being concerned about being kicked out. They're able to go to the grocery store and get the groceries that they need to serve their family a healthy meal. This means peace. This means security. It's so much more than just being able to pay your rent on time. And that's the overall vision that we would like to bring to so many more families. And I'm excited to say that we're, adding, we've added an additional staff member that is supporting even more families. So we are growing little by little incrementally to help support families in our community. A couple of words on what this costs. Participants received around an average of $1,400 in rental assistance at the beginning to stabilize them. And those who completed the program usually received another $1,100 in additional funds related to their goals. And this is the idea of really infusing our community with that support that they need to be able to weather the storm. So that being said, I'd like to turn it over to my coworker, Belia Casillas, who is our Housing Access and Justice Administrator, formerly our Canopy Coordinator. So I will turn it over to you, Belia.
Thank you, Joy, for the introduction. For those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Belia Casillas. My title is Housing Access and Justice Administrator. And formerly, I was for 3 years the Canopy coordinator. And just to kind of share with you some data that we do have in comparison to numbers from the Canopy versus the housing stability. One of the things that we want to see in this graph is that, back in 2019, which was the last year that we actually ran the Canopy, we served 17 families. And we were able to serve 17 families because we had 14 beds. And typically what that meant was that we could serve 3 to 4 families every 3 months because a family stayed in our program for 3 months. So in about a year average, we were serving 16 to 20 families a year. That was kind of like the range. So in 2019, we served 17 families. And at that time in 2019, we were able to move families into permanent housing, 67% of them. And so the other families, we were not able to get permanent housing. Either they went to other shelters or they went to transitional programs, or maybe moved back with family or friends. And then if you see the data for 2020 in our housing stability, you see that we were able to serve 71 families in 2020. And so what we do is I'm the only case manager here in 2020. And the average families that our gap that was per month was 7 families a month that I was able to do because I have to do case management with them twice a month. So if you do that in 2020, we were able to see 71 families. And out of those 71 families, 100% of those families were basically remain housed in their home, which is great. We were able to, prevent homelessness. They were able to stay in their home and provide them additional support if they needed to with either utility assistance or refer them to our coaching program as well. So that's kind of the data that we see with the Canopy versus the housing stability. And then this one will kind of our success story is just one of a few families that we have, where we have a family who basically came to us in January of last year. And we started this program in February. So February was the first month that the families could actually apply for rental assistance. So this family came in January. They came to their food pantry. They met with one of our staff, and basically we did a needs assessment where we decided kind of what is it that the family needs. And we by talking to her, we saw that, she has two little young kids. She was 8.5 months pregnant at that time. And so she applied for rental assistance because, she was about to have a baby and she knew she wasn't going to be able to work. So she applied for rental assistance. We were able to do the intake in March of 2020. We were able to pay her rent for March. And then in April, we started the 3 months of case management. And with the 3 months that I was working with her, we focused, we do a goal each month that we are meeting at the beginning of the month. And so one of the goals that we were kind of focusing with the family was, trying to secure child care since she had a little one and she wanted to go back into the workforce. So we established, child care. And then once we had the child care secured, we did employment. This mother was actually able to get a job in a nursing facility as a caregiver. And then towards the end of our meeting, we kind of felt that the family could benefit definitely from more additional support because she really wanted to go into a further education. She was really interested in getting her CNA and looking into how to go back into school and getting that. So we enrolled her into the collaborative coaching, and she's still in that program with one of our coaches. And she did get her CNA certification in January of this year. So it took, from last year, January to this January, she has definitely made a big improvement and is really thriving. She's basically has been able to pay her rent on time and it's employed now. So that's one of our success stories of one of few of many. So I'll turn it over to Dolores Ramirez, our Chief Program Impact Officer. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Belia. What an extraordinary story. I'm just always so proud to be able to be part of this work. And really what a journey we've all been in together. 2020 was like no other year, but as we've embarked on this housing stability and homelessness prevention program, it has definitely been no exception. And in addition to that, the evaluation results for this pilot year could not have been better. To recognize and to be able to celebrate that 100% of the families that we were working with were stable 3 months after working with Growing Home is just something to be grateful for. And despite starting the program in such a tumultuous year, the achievements and the progress that our families have conquered really speak to the strength and the resiliency of our community members. And of course, we have to honor the dedication and the passion that each one of our staff members at Growing Home bring every day. It's their unwavering belief in their support of families that plays such a big role in ensuring the success of our most vulnerable community members. So I'm just always so proud to celebrate and to be part of the work and part of this organization. Growing Home is doing amazing work in our community. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, as we start looking to the future of the program, I think it's important to pause and recognize that our pilot period took place during a year like no other, like none of us had ever seen before. And as our society is starting to open up a little bit more and we begin to reground ourselves in whatever this new normal is starting to look like, it is imperative that we continue strengthening our program and that we continue to closely monitor each one of our program components so that we can ensure that we are continuing to deliver the highest quality programming possible for our community. And we plan to do this work strategically. First, we want to ensure that we are continuously monitoring our data, the evaluation, what the numbers are telling us, how our families are doing. Secondarily, we want to make sure that we are constantly asking for feedback and having an authentic conversation and relationship with our participants so that we can ensure that we're staying grounded in truly what our community and our participants are telling us that they need. And third, we want to ensure that we're frequently revisiting and improving our processes and our procedures, as we know that the pilot year was, it took place during 2020. And so with that, as trends change, as our society changes, it's important for us to really be strategic and be very keen into what changes need to come with that. I think the other component that is just equally as important in Adams County in general, but particularly for Growing Home, is to celebrate and recognize how important it is going to be to continue strengthening our network of partnerships and cultivating those strategic partnerships that will ensure that our programs are strong, that our community has what they need, and which will eventually result in having a deeper and meaningful impact in the lives of the families that we are serving. It is our partners that play such a large role in ensuring that all of the families in Adams County have an opportunity to thrive. And in addition to that, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we recognize that these are ambitious goals, that we have a year ahead of us, that it's going to require a lot of collaboration, a lot of work. And we recognize that there are some additional resources that are going to be essential if we're going to do this right. And more than ever, we will need to have the capacity for program evaluation. We'll need to have the capacity to ensure that our partnerships are getting cultivated, that we're expanding our networks. And realistically, we're going to need that funding to support our participant goals. As we continue manifesting the Growing Home mission and vision for what's next in years to come. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to David. He is our partnership and administrator. He supports a lot of the work that we are doing out in our community, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about how you can continue to get involved in this work and how you can be a part of making this change.
Yeah, thanks, Dolores. I see a lot of great feedback and just a lot of welcoming happening in the chat to the side. So thanks, everyone. We know you all are here for a reason, and that's because you believe in the mission of Growing Home and the work that we do. And so shifting gears slightly, just to share further opportunities for you all to engage that mission and to support your neighbors, I wanted to let you all know that we have a number of committees that are available. We have task forces. Task force work might include supporting one of our campaigns, including our upcoming Home for the Summer campaign, helping plan for our fall event. That'll be a fundraising event. Supporting holidays. I think this year will be our 17th annual Thanksgiving food drive and holiday gift drive. So a rich history of volunteerism and donor support around that. And we'd also love to open that up as a task force to have our participants, donors, and other members of the community alike join us to help planning these kinds of events. Looking to the food pantry. So as many of you know, our food pantry operates Monday through Saturday in the first half of the day. On any given day, we need between 6, is really our critical minimum, to as many as 8 volunteers to make sure that the operation runs smoothly. Specifically right now, we're looking for bilingual members of our community to join us in the food pantry and a greeter capacity to help welcome participants as they arrive and really just give them the warm feeling that we try to share with our community here at Growing Home. Food rescue is another opportunity there that has particular need right now as well. Looking at what does that mean? So this is more focused on our skill-based volunteer opportunities. Right now, we're specifically looking for support with graphic design, social media, community engagement, volunteer intake. And then I got word today that on June 25th, we're going to have a special opportunity where we're receiving a large diaper donation from a community partner of ours, and we'll need maybe as many as 4 volunteers to help support us Friday, June 25th, that afternoon, to unload and store those diapers. And so if any of these opportunities are of interest to you, please feel free to email me at david@growinghome.org. And we can figure out how to plug and play and get us set up in the volunteerism realm of Growing Home. Turning to the next slide. We also have campaigns. So of course, that's another way that you can engage Growing Home and support our community, your community, is through our campaigns. In the first quarter of this year, early spring, we hosted our Essential Services campaign. That campaign, we had a lot of success there. We had 28 individual donors, 12 community partner organizations. And through these, the total of 40 donors, we monetarily raised over $10,000 brought in more than 4,000 pounds of hygiene and food items to be distributed through our food pantry, and for a contribution totally of slightly more than or nearly $18,000 in total. And so a lot of success there. Thank you, everybody, for that, especially those of you who are here, of course. And now moving into the summer, for our next quarter, we're going to be launching next week our Home for the Summer campaign. Home for the Summer is really focused on considering that what does home for the summer mean? For a lot of us, it's a great time. You know, it's road trips, cookouts, time spent with family. For some of our neighbors in our community, this experience, this positive experience of summer can be slightly out of reach. And we know that that's because increased expenses with children at home. You might have increased utilities. You might have increased costs feeding your family, especially for families who might have benefited from school provided meals for 2 of 3 meals every day throughout the academic year. And so this is an opportunity to make sure that we're extending the great time that we all know at Denver and Colorado summer can be to the families, especially in our housing stability program. And so just ways to support that. We get make a monetary donation through the campaign page. We have a number of volunteer projects specific to affordable housing communities in the area that we would love to get some groups on board for. And you can host a community drive as well.
Thank you, David, for sharing, and thank you for all of the folks who presented today. We appreciate you sharing this journey with us. Now we want